Howdy, howdy.
Good day.
And welcome to But It Was Aliens, the extraterrestrial comedy podcast where we probe paranormal activity to decide whether that activity really was paranormal. I'm your host this week, and my name is Kev, and alongside me with no idea what we'll be covering today is Mr. Granville Moonwalker. Today, we head to a little place called Poland in Europe. A place I myself have visited, though I can only imagine how much it's changed since the times of this probe in May 1978.
Is that when you visited?
No.
May 1978.
Absolutely, unless I was time travelling. Which I could have been.
Could have been.
Yes.
If future you time travelled to 1978, would now you remember what future you now knows?
Because it technically happened in the past.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
So I could be a time traveller by that logic. Anyhow, Jan Wolski had been born as a child, starting at the start.
I suppose that would depend on if when you time travelled you went back to the age that you were at that time, or if you were the age that you are now, or future age then.
Okay, so you're jumping into your past self.
Yeah.
Rather than
let's say, for example,
you wouldn't be able to meet your past self.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
Hypothetically, 50-year-old you would jump back and you would be the age that you were then, not 50. You kind of jump back into your own body.
But you'd still have been doing the jump after a certain point, so before the point wouldn't yet have made the jump.
But would you remember everything that happened?
You're going to send me cross-eyed here.
I am.
I don't think you would, but I don't want to give it any more thought.
Okay.
So Jan Wolski...
What if...
Jan Wolski had been born as a child at the start, which is where we're going to start, on the 29th of May 1907. And so by the 10th of May 1978 was a good 70 years of age plus credit. Jan was a farmer from Emilcin and was on this morning out driving a horse-drawn cart. As Jan was driving through some isolated, dark, winding woods, Jan noticed that there were two figures up ahead. Nothing unusual there. As Jan drew closer, Jan could see that these two figures weren't dressed like the locals. They had black outfits with a greyish tint, so Jan assumed that these were foreigners. Jan thought nothing of this and went about his journey, gradually nearing the figures in Jan's path.
Polish Mibs. They're Mibs from the Polish division.
You're seeing Jan about to get mibbed off.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
What if Jan knows something that Jan doesn't know he knows?
Don't you try and put this time traveling bit on. My mind can't handle it.
What if something happened to Jan that Jan wasn't aware of?
In the future, that resulted in Jan entering his past self and being able to recollect.
What if these Mibs were here to stop Jan before Jan done something that future Jan may regret? Or causes chaos and devastation? They're coming back to the point before it happened.
You could apply that logic to anything bad that's happened to anyone in life.
Then why don't we?
Because it's probably minimising some quite horrid things that have been done through history.
Like, from this point on, let's just go through everything and just say that that's that.
And that's why.
Yep.
I'm going to kick you in the leg under the table.
When?
Well, I can't tell you when, but it's to stop something bad from happening.
Okay.
I kick you and hurt my leg. As Jan passed the figures, possibly nodding as he passed, the figures didn't nod back because they literally leapt from the side of the path onto Jan's carriage. Ride or die, thug life, West Side, baby! As Jan got a good look at them, Jan doubled down in assuming that these people were indeed foreign, because not only were they pretty tall at 5 feet, but they had slanted eyes with prominent cheekbones. As Jan looked at the figures more closely though, Jan realised that the figures had big black eyes and green skin. It ain't easy being green, baby!
Intergalactic Mibs.
Jan realised that whatever was about to happen, Jan just had to go with it. The creatures sat down next to Jan and started speaking to Jan in a peculiar language, the likes of which Jan had never heard before. If this scenario happened to you and they started talking in tongues, how would you respond, Mr. Moonwalker?
I think that would depend on what that leap looked like. Like, say, for example, it's a leap that looks like they're going to attack you, then I'm sorry, self-defense may kick in. If it's
I'm sorry, I apologise.
If it's a leap like they might need a ride somewhere and just quickly like hop on, then I may just try and talk to them.
Talk to them about what?
I have no idea. Like, I would say I don't understand you. Like,
okay,
like
just trying to find some sort of common form of communication.
Yeah. And, I mean, it says talking in tongues. I suppose any foreign language to your ears is essentially speaking in tongues.
Yeah? Yeah, I suppose so.
So, what if they were just foreigners?
Foreign mibs.
That green skin kind of changes it. What if they had a mask on?
But then if they were...
They just had masks on.
And gloves?
Maybe.
And neck masks?
Well, or they just painted their faces.
Green bodysuits?
Prominent cheekbones. We've seen what makeup can do these days. What if they were just ahead of their time?
Okay, so...
They're really good face painters.
Why would two really good face painters leap onto Jan's carriage?
What if they were part of a circus and they got lost or left behind? The travelling circus left them because they went off drinking when they shouldn't have done. Circus up and left, or they got kicked out for some unknown reasons. They're really good at face painting, and that was their job, to face paint the children that came to the circus. They had theirs done, and Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. We've got two face painters from the circus that have leapt onto Jan's carriage to try and figure out a way to the circus.
I see at this point that there is no point in trying to argue with you. You are going the circus hypothesis. Noted. Whilst this was going on, the cart kept on going. The horse seemed completely at ease with the situation, I guess.
Because they're just normal people.
As Jan rode out from behind the bushes on autopilot into a clearing of sorts, Jan could not believe what he was witnessing. Having green-skinned figures talking to you in tongues was one thing, but as we've said, these could just be foreigners. But less easily explained was that hovering 16 feet in the air was some kind of white bus. This thing was between 14 and 17 feet in height. There were 4 black objects attached to the craft, which looked like drills.
Circus blimp.
We have a sketch of this craft, which I'm showing to Mr. Moonwalker now, whereby the drills look more silvery, but this is just someone's depiction. What's important here is that we have a flying white bus in a forest.
Okay, so the picture that you've shown me here looks more like a tent.
A flying white tent in a forest.
But it just looks like it could be... you know when you watch...
The circus?
Some films and they have, I wouldn't say futuristic science stuff in terms of like way into the future, but they're things that can be put up with ease, taken down with ease, like a giant white tent that just blows up. You can go in, you can use it, stuff like that.
Right.
That looks like a blow up
Lab?
yeah, that's it. I was about to say science tent.
Blow up science tent.
Looks like a blow up laboratory. And maybe the drills on the side. I don't know whether they're on the top, but they seem to be in all four corners, so maybe it's that what keeps it in the ground.
But it's not in the ground, it's floating.
Exactly. Maybe they haven't drilled it down yet.
So how is it floating?
Because from the looks of things, where the door is, and I'm assuming that's a door, if you look beneath it, it looks like there's two wires. Like,
remember,
proper...
this is just someone's depiction. It's not from the actual case itself.
Yeah, but they've drawn what they've seen, so they've drawn...
No, they're drawn an interpretation of the story they've heard, not involved with. So the actual story is that this white thing was flying in the air.
Okay, so what they've been told is that there was two cables from the bottom that attached to the floor, or a ladder, it would seem, and that's what you can see in that middle bit. So it's either a ladder that attaches, or there's strings that we can't see that are holding it to the ground so it doesn't float off, and that's a ladder to get up there, or that is two wires, but like heavy duty wires that are stopping it from floating. Yank those wires down, drill it into the ground, stay seated. That is a floating laboratory.
Wow. Let's see if we head towards some scientific experimentation, shall we? Jan described, as we've sort of covered, that the vehicle was about the size of a minibus, that it was white, and that those drill bits were buzzing. There were no windows or holes save for one door-like contraption, which Jan had noticed as he reached the craft with his green-skinned amigos, who continued to chat to Jan. The cart came to a gradual stop as it had reached the minibus. Underneath the craft, Jan discovered that there was a lift with a platform that would head up into this door to the craft. As Jan looked up, Jan noticed another figure. The figure waved at Jan, gesturing Jan up alongside another figure in the craft. Jan went up. Jan, of course, soon found himself inside the alien craft. As Jan looked around, Jan noticed some birds which appeared to be moving and flapping their wings, and yet the birds were not moving, almost as if they were immobilized or frozen in space and time. The aliens gestured to Jan to undress.
So he's about to get slabbed.
I will neither confirm nor deny that statement at this point.
That it's going to get slabbed, or that it's a lab?
Well, I mean, what is a lab, really?
This.
Yeah, this is absolutely a lab.
It's a slab-lab.
Something to that effect. How do you gesture to someone to get naked, though? Like, do you put your arms together, sort of knuckles, and mime undoing a shirt or pulling a shirt apart? Do you, like...
Wink?
Unroll your arm? Wink? Oh, he wants me to get naked. That'll get you in a lot of trouble in a coffee shop.
Who knows? Who knows? What if they got naked themselves and that's what the gesture was?
It's a
And
naked
he
party.
was like, it's a party.
You got to be naked in a lab. You can't risk contamination.
Absolutely. Or they had like, what are they called? So literally a set of pictures that describes what to do. I want to say pictogram, but it's not a pictogram.
Like a diagram.
Not a diagram, no.
Right.
But
visual instructions, let's call them.
Almost like a set of slides where they just showing one after the other.
A piece of clothing is removed.
Yeah.
Everyone. They could have just shown him one of a person naked to begin with, but they've actually showed him
And then the last
each individual sock being pulled off.
The last one is a naked person, and then after that it just goes, yay. And he was like, oh, they want me to get naked. Not realising it is in the slab-lab.
Yeah, he's very agreeable to what's going on.
I was about to say, maybe he thinks he's about to have a party.
Well, as we discussed, it was time for Jan to unleash Captain Winky, the one-eyed trouser snake. Once Jan was naked, member flopping in the wind, the creatures whipped out some small, saucer-like devices. As you can imagine, Jan didn't really know where this was going as he whapped his todger out, but when Jan saw the saucers, Jan got a little nervous. One creature in particular appeared to be the lead doctor, or scientist, head of the lab, if you will. The creature held a saucer in front of Jan's body around the titty area. After a short while, the creature then turned Jan around via moving Jan's arms slightly before holding a saucer over Jan's side. Does it seem like they're filling for what they really want to scan to you? The creature then slowly moved the saucer over Jan and stopped just as the saucer was held over Jan's arse. They're testing. Finally, whilst making uncomfortable eye contact, no words, just eye contact, the creature slowly placed the saucer over Jan's dingaling.
Okay, so they have the saucer over the dingaling. Now, my
Why
question...
is it when you say dingaling, I laugh? Yeah, when I say dingaling, it's perfectly normal.
He was a bit nervous at first, understandable.
Understandable,
He's
absolutely.
completely naked, and they're hovering things over his body. But it was his choice to get completely naked, so...
He didn't take much encouragement, did he?
No. Were these saucers sharp? Like, did they look like they had blades on the end?
No.
That's why I was nervous. Do they pretty much just look like a saucer that you would put a couple of biscuits on?
Yeah.
Like a dinner plate sauce.
Yeah,
Not
basically.
dinner plate saucer, but cutlery.
Yeah.
Okay.
There may have been some little lumps and bumps on them, but Jan isn't a scientist. He doesn't work in a lab.
Oh, he's about to get slabbed in a lab. Did he get any, was there any sensation from the saucers? Any heat coming from them? Any weird, tingling sensation held over certain parts of the body?
Not
the
yet.
Ding-a-ling.
Not yet that Jan has elaborated on, to my knowledge, no.
Did he get a nervous boner?
Like when he's got to stand up in school and do a presentation.
Trying everything possible not to get erect. And then he gets erect.
Jan neither confirmed nor denied said erection.
No, we're good.
After the experiment, the creatures told Jan to get dressed and then they offered Jan some munchies.
Biscuits.
This wasn't no one-night probe. They were whining and dining Jan. Those munchies were in the form of icicles which were of a honey-like consistency and smell, but Jan had lost his appetite and couldn't eat anything. I'm not sure on whether that's because of some form of radiation-like poisoning or whether this was actually more of a violating experience than I've explained, for example, but the massive green men appeared to understand that Jan just wanted to go home because after the offer of food, it was time to say goodbye. The creatures accompanied Jan back to the lift from the craft. As Jan got onto the platform, Jan nodded in goodbye to the creatures. The creatures nodded back. There was a mutual appreciation as to the importance of life as Jan rode back down to his craft, never to see the huge green creatures again.
Okay. The mutual appreciation to the importance of life.
Yeah.
Was that his life? as he got back down, he was like, thank fuck I'm alive. Nod.
I think it was life in general, but it could well have been both.
Cheers for keeping me alive.
He's told this story, and everyone's took it as some really sort of profound statement, when actually it was absolutely all about his own life.
Yep. I'm alive, thank fuck. Thanks, guys.
Life
for
is
not killing me.
so important. What do you mean, the life of all life in the universe? Sure,
Mine.
sure.
I made it. So he didn't get slabbed, to our knowledge far.
He didn't get slabbed on a table. Is this the first case of a standing slabbing we've had?
To be fair, what if those icicles had some form of memory wipe?
Possible. Or what if more has happened here than Jan has shared due to his embarrassment?
Maybe.
The aliens weren't even interested in doing anything to Jan, but Jan got naked and kept on insisting that they look at things and touch things.
So he was the one pushing for some lab slabs.
Come on, guys. You want to see my butt? You want to see my butt?
Probe me.
We told you to sit down with your clothes on.
What's clothes between friends, guy?
Come on, I'm a different kind of life. You gotta examine me. Look at my ass.
Do you reckon it was he thought, I'll show you mine, you show me yours?
You really wanted to see what the aliens were packing.
And they were like, no, that's fine.
Have we ever covered alien genitalia? We've had aliens doinking, don't get me wrong, but have we had a visual description as to the package?
Not that I can remember, but also it wouldn't surprise me if somewhere in a probe there is a snippet of alien ding-dong. There we go.
Ding-a-ling, I'll have you know.
Apologies. Alien ding-a-ling.
That's more like it, sir.
Ding ding, a ling.
You may think that you've never heard of this one, so it couldn't have been big news, but this story did actually hit the Polish newspapers at the time. I'm just showing Mr. Moonwalker one of the newspaper clippings, just for reference as we continue, as obviously this is in Polish, so there's no use us ignorant English folks in analysing this. When Jan got home, Jan was obviously in complete shock and stuttered his experience out to his family. The story was incredible, so it wasn't long before Jan was telling the neighbours too. The sons weren't letting anyone take advantage of their pappy, so the sons gathered up a group of locals and went to investigate, dragging Jan along too. The group travelled to the scene of the abduction, but by the time they arrived, the craft was long gone, leaving behind only what looked like squished grass. Jan went home, dissatisfied, but once Jan had gone, the sons actually found goddamn alien footprints heading in all directions.
In the picture, I say in the picture, in
The newspaper
clippings you've
Yep.
put in, it's very hard to know because it's in Polish. But is that Jan? Because that could be a separate article to the side.
No, that's not Jan, sorry. Because Jan, if you remember, was quite an elderly chap.
That's true. 70 odd.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not Jan.
Yeah, he was a hard-working, older farmer who was still working past the age of retirement, or today's age of retirement at least.
So that whole time, I forgot how old Jan was. So
He's probably
at
used to getting naked.
70 plus years old. He was more than willing to strip down and try and get him some action.
Been a lonely summer. A couple of journalists, Henryk Pomorski and Christina Adamczyk, interviewed Jan about 2 months after this event in the 70s. this interview was recorded. It's obviously in Polish, so I'll chop this from the following episode, but I'm just going to show Mr. Moonwalker that this video does exist because I could read Mr. Moonwalker's self-penned autobiography and Mr. Moonwalker still wouldn't believe it because I'm the one saying it. Jan does indeed exist.
I have a question here.
Right.
You could read my self-penned autobiography.
Mm-hmm.
So because you time travelled.
I can't think through that scenario. You've broken my mind.
Captain Jism, time traveller extraordinaire.
Is that the title of your autobiography?
You tell me.
I tell you that it is. It's penned by me.
Alright. So we have this video of Jan, which is going to get cut out anyway, so I don't know why I'm talking.
I'm leaving that bit in now.
Okay. It's giving me a good picture of what his horse and cart look like.
Mm-hmm. UFO researcher Zdzisław Blania also investigated this one and had a psychologist look at the case whom confirmed that Jan was healthy and legit. Blania also found a second witness, a witness who saw a bus-like UFO fly over a nearby barn on the very same day of Jan's experience before shooting off at unbelievable speed and vanishing into the sky. The witness was a 6-year-old boy called Adam Popielek, but being 6, nobody believed him.
He saw a balloon, saw an inflated lab slab. Lab slab? Slab-lab.
Blaine went...
He looks like a tough bastard, doesn't he?
And
his sleeves rolled up.
in a cold, cold country.
Showing his biceps.
His 6-year-old biceps. Blaine went on to publish a book about the incident in 1996 called Zadzini w Emilcini. I probably have butchered the pronunciation of that quite significantly, but never mind. I do have some more visual evidence for Mr. Moonwalker, which we'll post on Instagram at But It Was Aliens. For me, this image is both the most compelling and is also what happens when a Teletubby goes dark and gets into gimping.
Oh, okay. Now,
Yeah.
oddly, in this picture, that face looks rather feminine.
Yeah, I could see that. But
So-
then when you're talking about another species
Yeah, it just looks like a female with a hood.
and green skin, remember?
Yeah, was it green?
I mean, it was green.
Circus.
Yes, we've covered...
We've covered face painters.
What's circus green?
I meant circus face painters. People that used to work at the circus.
And painted their face and arms green and wore otherwise black-ish gimp suit-looking things.
What if these people had just been to an alien convention and got lost and didn't know how to get home? Or the bus or anything that was meant to be taking them home, like, left early. or
How do
didn't
you
turn up.
explain the floating, vibrating sky bus?
Slab-lab?
Yes, the slab-lab, yes.
What if it was just a hot air balloon?
You can't go inside the
Did he
balloon
go
of the
inside?
hot air. Well, Jan did.
Did they give him mushrooms?
Not that I'm aware of.
Did they give him any other form of hallucinogen?
Not that I'm aware
Is
of.
he known to have taken drugs in his life?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. The fact that you're not aware of doesn't rule it out.
Ah, you've clocked onto that, eh? He was a farmer, so he could have been working around chemicals, but we're not onto theories yet.
Not only that, could be eating some of his own product,
Some mushrooms, for
Yeah.
example.
testing out for what if he feeds his horse some mushrooms, and he was like, let me try one of these. Ooh, send him on a ride.
That's a mushroom, baby. Woo!
He was looking at his hands, and then on the tip of each finger was another hand, and then on the tip of those little mini fingers were other hands. So he had about like 20 hands
He
to
was
one
Andy.
hand. Jan hands.
Imagine the jazz fingers. The things he could have done. What else could explain this one? Could Jan be bullshitting? The video didn't necessarily seem that way, but I'm mindful that we don't speak the language, so we basically have no right to comment on that one. Rather than lying for the sake of it, it's possible Jan could have been in a liars club too. Jan could have also fainted due to farm substances and hallucinated. I could find no information out there on whether Jan was carrying any dodgy substances in the cart, for example. The final explanation, could Jan have been right originally? Was this a case of foreigners? Before we summarise, I'll just add that Jan Wolski sadly passed away on January the 8th, 1990, having reached 82 years of age. This case is considered just about the most famous alien abduction case ever to have struck in Poland. A memorial was actually created in Emilcin during 2005, which has a plaque stating, "The truth will astonish us in the future." A time capsule was also buried, not to be opened until the year 3011. 3011. That is intriguing.
3011.
Yes.
That time capsule gets opened up. There's a letter inside. They open it up. It was all bullshit.
Would that astonish?
Yeah. If everyone believed it was real.
So you're saying that you believe it's real?
I said if everyone. Bum, bum, bum. There was something I was going to touch on.
Farm chemicals, substances in the cart.
Foreigners.
Right.
And the white bus-like looking
Yep.
thing. My geography is horrendous. How close to Poland is Romania?
I mean, I don't know the the exact mileage or kilometers. Why do you ask?
Is the term Romanskis? The travelling gypsy population?
I mean, it's approximately 648 kilometers if you really want to know.
I mean, apologies if I've got that completely wrong, but I'm thinking, what if the floating white bus was just a caravan? And he was high? Again, chemicals. What, have you never seen a caravan before?
A caravan in the sky?
Not in the sky, it was just on the ground, but it's slightly higher up than what you would assume it to be.
He
But
went into it.
If he was slightly hallucinating or...
Slightly hallucinating. It's only something that isn't there.
or on some form of hallucinogen, that object could look slightly different. Well, quite a bit different. And the foreign language that they were speaking would just be the language that
Maybe they were speaking
they
the
are
same
speaking.
language. He was just smashed on mushrooms
Possible.
and hallucinating. But what you're not saying is that he's bullshitting. You think that he believes whatever happened.
Yeah.
In summary, we've heard the tale of 70-year-old farmer Jan Wolski in Poland, whom was jumped by a couple of big green men at 5 feet tall. The big green men accompanied Jan on his cart to a clearing where a roughly 15-foot craft was hovering. Another alien gestured for Jan to come up, and Jan took a lift up the craft before being told to whip his package out. Jan's balls were scanned before Jan was offered some munch and sent on his way. Jan told his family, and Jan's sons gathered a crew and went to investigate, finding footprints. Jan was subsequently interviewed in the media, and an unbelievably healthy and legit second witness was uncovered. a 6-year-old boy. Unquestionable evidence. We covered other explanations briefly, including Porky's, hallucination, and that Jan had indeed been targeted by outsiders. This case is reportedly famous in Poland, and a memorial was developed with a time capsule which is not to be opened until after the year 3011, 3011. Why? The truth will astonish us in the future. Is there anything you want to go over before we conclude, Mr. Moonwalker?
The only thing I can think of is they've put such a ridiculous year for it to be opened.
Yeah.
So that anyone involved will be long gone by the time anything in the capsule comes up.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if there's some bad stuff in the capsule in terms of, not bad, but how it's all worked.
Their local government were testing like LSD-esque substances and seeing what they could get locals to do.
I mean, you've gone somewhere I wasn't expecting. Or maybe they were, I don't know. Are there any stories or anything of Jan's sons or anyone that worked on the farm experiencing anything?
No.
Is there something wrong with the ground that he generally works on?
No. So the one thing I'll just mention here is, where are the frickin' footprints? They found footprints.
We have no pictures.
Yeah, fair enough, this wasn't sort of the modern era, but if the footprints are there, you could get somebody to wait with them whilst they go and get cameras to document it.
Or even the police.
Maybe that's what's in the time capsule.
If they
did happen.
If they don't have cameras themselves and it was an incident like that, you would go and get the police involved and say you found something.
Yeah.
That way you'd at least have the pictures of the footprints, like you say.
Well, on that note, are you saying...
Slab-lab.
Are you saying that it was aliens in the slab-lab?
No, I'm not.
How dare you speak ill of Jan Wolski?
I'm saying that he believes he saw what he saw. I do not believe what he saw was extraterrestrial in nature. I believe it was human. Or not necessarily human, but it was of this world. This Earth. And was he drunk?
I couldn't find anything out there to suggest that, but I'll touch on this a little bit in my own thoughts.
Because we have the incident where I'm 100% certain that someone else was in the back of that taxi. Now,
when you were haunted,
you say there was no one there. I'm adamant there was. And I was drunk at the time.
Yep.
Now, both me being drunk
and being able to see dead people
could be why I saw what I saw, and it wasn't really there, or it has no correlation whatsoever and I saw what I saw.
Or did you not see what you saw, but you've just remembered it that way because you were smashed?
Possibly. Maybe the same thing happened here.
Yeah, I can buy into that. Yeah, for me, again, this is one of those ones that makes me reflect on just how many well-known alien cases there are in countries where English isn't the first language. Obviously, I don't speak Polish, but Jan does come across as genuine as much as you can to someone who has no idea what you're saying. But what I found most fascinating in this one is that time capsule isn't to be opened until 3011. That is bonkers and makes me very curious as to what's in there. Curiosity didn't kill this cat though, because I'm not saying that it's aliens either, but I really want to know why. The truth will astonish us. Colour me intrigued, my friends. Intrigued. But not enough to say that it's extraterrestrial. I think this one is the clever tourism marketing department intriguing people because there isn't enough evidence to point me elsewhere yet. Yeah, so I think maybe Jan possibly either got drunk or was out of his mind on farm substances, whatever it may be, thought he saw something that he didn't, and that was used to bring tourism into the area.
I mean, do we know if it worked?
People go to see the monument.
Okay. I was going to say, did tourism...
I'm not sure if there's like a UFO festival there. Like, for example, we've covered Kecksburg, where there is an annual UFO festival, and that brings business into the town. But yeah, people certainly go to see the monument. Just like in Suffolk, you've got the Rendlesham monument that people go to do the walk and see.
Mm-hmm.
So it does bring in tourism to an extent. Not necessarily the most
profitable.
But yeah, money's money, son.
Absolutely.
Any final thoughts before we say our goodbyes and hop back in our box for another week, sir?
We need to get slab-lab t-shirts.
Slab-lab. Slab-lab. Welcome to the slab-lab. You're in it. That is a wrap for today. Thank you for listening to But It Was Aliens. The episode is ending, but the good times don't have to, because if you want to hear more, you can, by golly. If you head on over to patreon.com/But It Was Aliens, you can become a patron of the show, and as a bonus, you will gain access to our secret episodes, the side probes. The patreon.com is where we undertake our naughtiest of nasties, our dirtiest of deeds. It's where you can hear the truth behind telepathic sexual healer Rasputin's dick and a skull poking, well, again, it was a sexual deviant, but we don't just cover sexual deviants on the Patreon. We also covered Dorothy Eady, who was a reincarnated Egyptian priestess who funked a mummified pharaoh. You know what? Never mind. Support the show, folks! Another way to support the show is to head on over to butitwasaliens.co.uk, possibly the least updated official podcast website and store on the internet. Will this make us an award-winning podcast? Only time will tell. If you don't want to support us with anything but your emotions, you can drop us a review on Apple Podcasts or 5-star us on Spotify. You can recommend us to your friends, or you can simply hit us up on the artist formerly known as the Twitter at ButItWasAliens.
On the Twitter.
You can do it. Just let it out. Let it out. Tweet post us a virtual pat on the back, folks. You can find us at the same handle on most social media platforms, do you feel better?
Yeah.
Including
Didn't
Facebook.
want to wake the babe.
The babe is out.
Oh.
Facebook. Where we have an associated publicly private group available to all who are invited to ask or join, called... It's where you can find handy hints to prepare for alien invasion in the form of Brendan Fraser! Jesus, I'm putting it back in the box. That's it for this episode, so until next time, are Cocoa Pops the pops of cocoa? The truth is up there. #. Wah.